This program is the first in a series entitled Seize the Time, produced by Radio Free People and the Committee to Defend the Panther 21. The topics for this series include the New York Panther 21, Black Liberation, and the coming revolution in America. The first program in the series is called Capitalism plus Dope equals Genocide. It was recorded in prison by Michael Cetewayo Tabor, one of the Panther 21. Tabor has been in jail since April 1969. He was arrested then and held in $50,000 bail. He and the other Panthers are charged with conspiring to blow up the botanical gardens, dynamite department stores, murder policemen, and bomb railway lines. The biggest frame-up in the history of New York. On February 2nd, pre-trial hearings began. On February 25th, Judge John Mudface Murtaugh recessed the hearings for an indefinite period. He said they could only be resumed if the Panthers agreed to remain silent in the courtroom. The Panthers have said that if their constitutional rights are violated, they will continue to stand up and speak out. Tabor was born and lived most of his life in Harlem. For 5 years, from age 13 to age 18, he was addicted to heroin, to the plague, as he calls it. But Tabor kicked the habit and became a member of the Black Panther Party. He worked on the Panther breakfast program to feed hungry black children and on the Liberation School to teach black children to read. He was defense captain of the Bronx chapter of the party. Here is his statement on dope.
All power to the people. This is Brother Michael Cetewayo Tabor. And at this point, I'd like to address myself specifically to the question of drug addiction. Recently in the black colony of Harlem, a 12-year-old black youth was murdered by an overdose of heroin. A week or so later, a 15-year-old black girl met the same fate. During the year 1969 in New York City alone, there were over 900 deaths resulting from drug addiction. Of these, 210 were youths, ranging in age from 12 to 19. Of the over 900 dead, the overwhelming majority were Black and Puerto Rican. Conservative estimates state that there are at least 25,000 youths in New York City alone addicted to heroin. Drug addiction in the colonized ghettos of America has constituted a major problem for over 15 years. Its use is so widespread that it can, without fear of exaggeration, be termed a plague. It has reached epidemic proportions, and it is in fact still growing. It has only been within the last few years that the fascist U.S. government has considered drug addiction as being a matter of grave concern. And it is also interesting to note that this concern on the part of the government is proportional to the spread of the plague into the inner sanctums of the white, middle class, and upper class communities. As long as the plague was confined to the ghettos, the government did not see fit to deem it a problem. But as soon as the capitalists found out that the plague had infected their sons and daughters, a virtual state of national emergency was declared. This is significant, for it provides us with a clue to the understanding of the plague as it relates to black people. From the Federal Bureau of Narcotics to the clergy, to the members of the medical profession, to psychologists and so-called educators, right on down to the chemically enslaved addict on the street corner, the hopes for effectively curbing the spread of the plague are appallingly dim. Despite the stiffer jail sentences that are being meted out to those who the law defines as being drug profiteers, and that term is nothing but a euphemistic way of saying illegal capitalists. There are more dope dealers now than ever before. Despite the increasing number of rehabilitative and preventive programs being effected, the plague proliferates and threatens to devour an entire generation of youth. The basic and fundamental reason why the plague cannot be stopped by the drug prevention and rehabilitation programs is that these programs, with their bourgeois, archaic, Freudian approach and group therapeutic concepts, do not deal with the ultimate root causes of the problem. These programs deliberately negate or at best deal very lightly with the socio-economic origin of drug addiction. These programs sanctimoniously deny the fact that capitalist exploitation and racial oppression are the main contributing factors to drug addiction on the part of black people. These programs were never intended to help cure the black addict. In fact, they can't even cure the white addicts who they were designed for. The reactionary bourgeois government of the United States defines the cause as being the importation of the plague into the country by dope smugglers. They are now attempting to negotiate a deal with the countries of France and Turkey to cut down on the importation of the plague. They themselves, though, are forced to admit that stopping the entry of the plague is damn near impossible. The government is well aware of the true causes that underlie drug addiction. The government is well aware of the fact that even if they were able to stop the importation of heroin, dope dealers and addicts would just find another drug to substitute it, to take its place, as they are in fact doing. The reactionary U.S. government is totally incapable of addressing itself to the true causes of drug addiction, for to do so would necessitate making fundamental and basic institutional and structural changes. And these changes could not take place, they could not possibly be effected without changing the manner in which property is owned and the manner in which wealth is distributed in this society. In short, only a revolution could eliminate the plague. Drug addiction is merely a monstrous symptom of the malignancy which is ravishing the entire social fabric of the capitalist system of exploitation. And in order to understand the plague, we must first achieve some understanding of that system. Drug addiction is a social phenomenon that grows organically from the social system. Every social phenomena that emanates from a society, from a social system that is predicated upon and motivated by bitter class antagonisms that results from class exploitation must be seen from a class point of view. In regards to black people, our problems are compounded, and take on appalling dimensions as a result of the racist dehumanization that we are subjected to. Therefore, to understand the plague as it relates specifically to black people, we must analyze the effects of capitalist economic exploitation and racist dehumanization, which is a byproduct of capitalism. We must analyze the effects that they have on black people. The heinous and sadistic program of annihilating the humanity of black people that was initiated over 400 years ago by money-mad slave masters and that has continued unabated till this very day is deliberate and systematic. It is done for the purpose of justifying their exploitation of us and facilitating it. Since the reality of our objective existence seemed to confirm the racist doctrines of white superiority and its antithesis, black inferiority, we, lacking an understanding of the true reasons for our condition, internalized those racist doctrines. In short, we in time began to believe that we were inherently inferior to whites. These feelings of inferiority gave birth to a sense of self-hatred, which finds expression in self-destructive behavior patterns. The wretchedness of our plight, our sense of powerlessness and despair served to create within our minds a predisposition and susceptibility towards the use of any element or substance that produces euphobic illusions. That is to say, we are strongly inclined to use anything that enables us to suffer peacefully. This might be termed an escapist complex. The escapist complex is in effect also self-destructive. The depraved, capitalist, racist oppressor exploits these psychological and emotional deficiencies for all they are worth. The oppressor encourages our participation in any activity that is self-destructive. This fact is easily understood when we realize that our self-destructive behavior patterns and our escapist tendencies constitutes a source of profits for the capitalists. They also, by weakening, dividing, and destroying us, reinforce the strength of the oppressor and enables the oppressor to perpetuate his domination over us. Fratricidal street gang fighting is a direct manifestation of a self-destructive behavior pattern. It is also a form of escapism by which black youths vent their rage, frustrations, and despair on each other rather than dealing with the true enemy. Pathological religionism, or the fanatical indulgence in religion, is essentially escapist because it encourages the victim to concentrate his or her attentions and energies and hopes for salvation and freedom upon a dubious, mystical, non-tangible force. And it disencourages the confronting and dealing with the actual causes of our exploitation and oppression. It encourages the focusing of attention upon the pie in the sky rather than the securing of more lamb chops right here on the planet Earth. It also serves as a source of profits for those religious charlatans, preachers and ministers and myth players who exploit it. Alcoholism is, in nature and effect, both self-destructive and escapist. It is also a source of tremendous profits for the capitalists. The amazingly high number of bars and liquor stores in the black communities testify to this fact. The capitalist liquor industry could prosper just on the business it does in the black ghetto alone. Undoubtedly, the most infinitely escapist and absolutely self-destructive activity for us, and the most unbelievably profitable for the capitalist, and therefore the most encouraged by him, is drug addiction, specifically heroin addiction. Heroin addiction, the plague, the scourge of the black colonies of Babylon, the plague whose spiritual, moral, psychological, physical, and social destructive powers greatly exceeds that of any disease up until this point known to humanity. The plague, opium from Turkey, shipped to Marseilles, converted into morphine base, and then processed into the plague, smuggled into Babylon, cut, diluted, and then placed in the black colonies. The plague, poisonous, lethal, white powdery substance, sold by depraved, money-crazy fiends to black youths who are desperately seeking a kick, a high, a means, a anything that will help to make them oblivious to the squalor, to the abject poverty, to the disease and degradation that engulfs them in their daily existence. And initially, the plague does just that. Under its sinister influence, the oppressive, nauseous ghetto prison is transformed into a virtual Valhalla. One becomes impervious to the rancid stench of urine-soaked tenement dungeons, unaffected by the piercing cries of anguish from black folks driven to the brink of insanity by a sadistic and predacious social system, unaffected by the deafening wail of pig police sirens as they tear through the streets of the black hell en route to answer the call of some other pig police who is in a state of well-deserved distress, unaffected by the trash cans whose decayed, disease-carrying garbage has flowed over to fill the ghetto streets. Yes, under its ecstatic influence, one is made oblivious to ugly realities. But there is a trick, a cruel, monstrous trick, a deadly flim-flam awaiting its naive, youthful victim. For as the illusionary beauty of the heroin-induced high begins to vanish, correspondingly, the temporary immunity to reality attained under its chemical trance vanishes likewise. That reality that the pathetic victim sought so desperately to escape once again descends upon and re-engulfs him. The rancid stench of urine-soaked tenement dungeons begins to assail his nostrils. Those black cries of anguish seem to blend with the wailing sirens of police cars. He hears them now very loud and very clear in stereophonic sound. And that garbage that spills over onto the streets from uncollected trash cans, it too is felt underfoot. The young victim is not long in finding out that only by taking another dosage will he be able to attain sanctuary from his hideous reality. Each dosage, each shot of the plague that he injects into his by now well-poisoned blood system brings him that much closer to the grave. His physical body begins to take on a decimated appearance. A shameless disregard is displayed towards his body and the clothes that he wears. That his shirt is filthy, that his shoes are soleless, leaving him to walk virtually on his naked feet, that does not matter. that his unwashed body now emits a most foul odor disturbs him but little, that his non-addicted friends now shun and view him with contempt matters not, for the feelings are mutual. They no longer have anything in common. Everything ceases to matter, everything except heroin, the plague. By now he is strung out, hooked. He is physiologically and psychologically dependent upon the plague. Both his body and mind have become addicted to heroin. He has now become a full-time chartered member of the Cloud Nine Society. As he continues, his body begins to build up an immunity to the drug. He realizes that now, in order to attain his euphoric high, he must increase his dosage. This means that he has to attain more money. So enslaved has he now become that he will do anything for a bag, anything for a shot. To lie, to steal, to cheat, to rob is nothing to him. Whatever he must do for a shot, he will do. He, in fact, must do, for he is a slave to the plague. The vicious cycle is now in motion. He violates what the ruling class defines as being the law in order to secure money. With that money, he cops. He takes off. The high wears off. He must secure more money for more dope. He must steal, mug, or stick up. He gets busted eventually. He goes to jail, and after he has served out his sentence, he is released. And the first thing he wants is a shot. The vicious cycle continues, and he plunges deeper and deeper into the abysmal pit of degradation. His soul linked to humanity is now but a thin thread. And there, always there, and ever willing, for a price, of course, to meet the addict's demand for dope is the cop man, the dealer, the purveyor of poison, distributor of death, merciless murdering scum of the planet, vile capitalist salesman of death on the installment plan, the plague man, the dope pusher. Dope selling is beyond a doubt one of the most profitable capitalist undertakings. On the highest level, the international level, that is, the drug traffic is controlled by the elements of organized crime, especially the Cosa Nostra, the so-called mafia. It is also this group which controls, ultimately, the drug traffic, sale, and distribution, etc., on the national level. And from their drug smuggling and sales activities, they amass profits that soar into the billions. The profits made from the drug trade are used to finance so-called legal and legitimate businesses. These legitimate businesses are controlled by the mafia and are also used to facilitate their drug smuggling activities. Given the fact that organized crime is a business in every sense of the word, and an ever-expanding one at that, it is constantly seeking new areas of investment. Hence, more and more illegal profits are being channeled into legal businesses. Partnerships with legal businessmen have become the order of the day. There is a direct relationship between legitimate and illegitimate capitalists. Over the years, a number of foreign ambassadors and wealthy businessmen have been arrested in this country for drug smuggling. In December 1969, a group of wealthy South American businessmen and financiers were arrested in a plush New York City hotel with over $10 million worth of drugs. Shortly before that, a firm of Wall Street brokers was found to be financing drug operations. Of course, no indictments were handed down against them. Given the predatory and voracious nature of the capitalists, it should come as no surprise that the so-called legitimate businessmen are deeply involved in the drug trade. Capitalists are motivated by an insatiable lust for profits. They will do anything for money. The activities of organized crime and so-called legitimate capitalists are so inextricably tied up, so thoroughly interwoven, that from our point of view, any distinction made between them is purely academic. The legitimization of the mafia, that is, their increased emphasis upon investing in and establishing corporations, and along with that, the stiffer prison sentences that are being meted out to drug profiteers, has resulted in their gradual withdrawing from the lower levels, where the profits are smaller and the risk of arrest are greater. That vacuum has been filled by non-mafia dealers who are supplied by the mafia. A few years ago, it was a rarity to find a Negro dope dealer who handled more than 3 kilos of heroin, a kilo being 2 pounds, 2 ounces, at any one time. Now, though more and more Negro plague peddlers are handling upwards to 10 kilos of heroin. When you consider that a kilo of heroin purchased at $18,000 when cut and bagged up and sold brings a net profit of over $200,000, then it becomes much easier to understand that even if the death penalty were imposed on drug profiteers, it would not deter the trade. When you consider that America is an ultra-materialistic and infinitely Philistine society in which the human rights of men are consumed by the flames on the sacrificial altar of the almighty dollar, when you dig and fully understand the basic reality of American society, then you can understand that without a revolution that is designed to totally transform the fundamental nature of this society, the plague and other such psycho-emotional diseases can never be eradicated. The plague could never flourish in the black communities as it does if it were not for the active support of the occupation forces, personified by the pig police force. That narcotic arrests have skyrocketed in no way mitigates the objective fact that more and more pig police are taking payoffs from drug peddlers in return for immunity. Damn near every week we hear about some pig police being suspended for taking payoffs from a plague peddler or extorting money from them. It is also the practice of the police department, especially the narcotics agents, to seize a quantity of drugs from one dealer, arrest him, but only turn in a portion of the confiscated drugs for evidence. The rest is given to stool pigeons who in many cases are dealers themselves. These stool pigeons actually receive drugs from the agents and they sell them. There have also been reports of agents who actually use drugs themselves. They have dope fiends on the police force. These are the individuals who are sent into the community supposedly to protect us. When these activities on the part of the police force are placed in their proper context and understood, then we can see that the pig police can never solve the problem because they are in fact part of the problem. This week, the lying, devious puppets of big business, the demagogic politicians of Capitol Hill, passed a law which gives narcotic agents the right to crash in a suspected dope dealer's house and without knocking, if there is reason to believe that drugs or other evidence will be destroyed. Now, anyone who thinks that this law will be confined to just suspected plague peddlers is negating the fact that this country is becoming increasingly repressive, that it is in fact becoming fascist. It would do us well to consider what kicking down a person's door in search of drugs and other evidence actually means. First off, what is other evidence? It should come as no surprise when the homes of revolutionaries and other progressive individuals are invaded by pigs under the pretext of searching for narcotics and other evidence. A number of revolutionaries have been imprisoned on framed up, trumped up narcotic charges already. The brother Martin Sostra was sentenced to 41 years on a framed up narcotics charge, a framed up dope charge. You can rest assured that this policy will be intensified. When the pigs kick in a revolutionary's door and crash through the windows with shotguns on the pretext of looking for drugs and other evidence, they will find drugs because they bring them with them. According to reports issued by the pig police, at least 40% of the thefts and armed robberies committed in the large cities are attributed to drug addicts. That black drug addicts commit most of their crimes in the black community is a fact. The people of the black community have been duped into asking for more police protection, and more pigs are being deployed into the black colonies, but not to protect the people. They are being sent in for the purpose of repressing black people. It must be reiterated that the police have no desire to eliminate the problem of drug addiction in the black community. This problem can only be dealt with by the residents, by the inhabitants of that community. And the only manner in which they can do that is by organizing themselves into forces that will in effect harass, intimidate, and if necessary, attack physically drug dealers. They must be seen and dealt with for what they really are, enemies and murderers of the people. Their actions and deeds resulting in the destruction of the youth of our people. And we must understand that it is the youth who make the revolution, and it is the youth who carry it out. And without our young, we will never be able to forge and establish a powerful revolutionary force. We must understand dope for what it really is. It is a form of genocide in which the victim pays to be killed. Capitalism plus dope equals genocide. This is Michael Cetewayo Tabor of the Panther 21, and all of the other members of the Panther 21 say all power to the people, seize the time, eliminate drugs by eliminating the source of the drugs. All power to the people.
Think about it, 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 think about it.
The Panthers are still in jail. Their bail is over $1 million. The Committee to Defend the Panther 21 is working to free the Panthers. Seize the time.